Today, I'll walk through the rating criteria for migraines from 0% to 50%. We'll talk through some secondary conditions, and I'll even go through a live demo that can really boost your rating when you're actually logging your migraines and sending them to your computer and using it to write up some personal statements. All right, let's jump into this. So what exactly are migraines rated under? Because tension headaches, cluster headaches, migraines, any form of a headache is rated under one diagnostic code, which is diagnostic code 8100. So that means having a denial for migraines is essentially having a denial for headaches of any sort if you're using that as a claim with the VA. So for diagnostic code 8100, let's break down what the schedule of ratings gives you on a percent basis from 0 to 50%, starting with a 0%. So at a 0% rating, you do have migraines, you are diagnosed with it, but it does not cause any significant problems in your life. So I highly doubt that anybody that has migraines is going to get a 0% rating, because if you actually tell them you have migraines, it's probably causing some sort of problem in your life. But it's not impossible. If you have a 0% rating, there's still hope to get that increased over time, so it's still worthwhile having a 0%. For our 10% rating, you are having a prostrating attack of a migraine or a headache up to once every 2 months. So prostrating is the VA's term for having to lay down. And it doesn't mean lay down and go to sleep for 8 hours. It just means you are physically incapable of doing something. You have to step away from what you're doing in an activity sense, or out and about, or you can't drive a vehicle, and you need to rest for some period of time until the headache or migraine is relieved. So at 30%, these prostrating attacks are more frequent, and they are going to be happening at least once per month. And at 50%, you are having very frequent weekly prostrating attacks that can be pretty severe. And because they're happening weekly, the big part of it is that it's affecting your income. This is called severe economic inadaptability from the VA. And if you are having to take time off because it is happening once a week, you might be missing work. You might be missing a full day of work. You might be having to cut out of work early. You might not be able to drive home from work. But those are the criteria ratings from 0 to 50%. But going back to severe economic inadaptability, this doesn't mean that you do not have a job because of your migraines. It just means that your migraines or headaches are disruptive in your life to the point where it could affect your income, or it does affect your income in some way, which includes taking time off work. But this also counts for having to have accommodations at home or at work. And this also will reflect if you are not being as productive throughout the day because you have a headache that takes you away from your focus. So if you want to dive deeper into this information, which I pulled from the master condition list, I made a video up here of all the disabilities that you can actually look for under this gigantic list. And that's why I found that headaches and migraines were actually the same thing together under the same diagnostic code. So now that you know your VA rating that you're going to be aiming for, that you might have, let's go into the biggest part, which is gathering evidence. And now this isn't the first time you've probably heard this, but people use a tracking app called Migraine Buddy, and this is one of the best ways to track your migraines. I think personally, it's been one of the most influential ways because I have my phone on me a lot for work and for my personal life. And when I have a migraine, I have an app that is on there. You can also write these things down if you want. You don't have to use an app. But today, right now, I'm going to demonstrate how Migraine Buddy looks, how the app actually interacts, and how you can export this. I have no affiliation with Migraine Buddy. I just think it's a really good app. So let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm going to screen record exactly what I see on the app and what you can use, and run a demonstration on what to do when you're tracking. Though I did have a migraine yesterday, so I did log one yesterday, but I haven't used this app as frequently or consistently. But if you go down, you can actually be able to log a migraine with this little lightning bolt button. So I'm going to put the start time for 1 hour ago, and I'm not really going to put an end time, but I can put still going. I can put just now, which I can put just now right now. Or if you go to other, you can actually put a different date. So let's say you're tracking a migraine from yesterday. On the other section above, you can also put that it was happening yesterday at, let's say, 2 p.m. And then in the other section on the end time, you can put 3 p.m. if it was 1 hour. And you're having to make some estimations here, but you can at least put some times down. If you click the next arrow, this is where you're going to be talking about the type of attack. So these gives you little bullet point outlines that you'll see on a PDF, but there's also a section where you can talk about it and write it out. So if there's more beyond this, don't worry, there's a spot for you to actually write some information. So let's just say this was a migraine. I'm going to click migraine, and we're going to go to the next button. Highest pain level, let's just say it's moderate, which is, it's not unbearable, but it does disrupt activities. We're going to click next. Where did this attack happen? Let's just say because I'm at home right now, it was at home, but you can also put at work. So again, if you're showing that these do happen at work, there's a way to actually show this did happen at work. Look at my log. I'm going to click next from there. And here we go with some of the symptoms. So again, you can look at the symptoms list on the DBQ so you understand what is a symptom, but fortunately, they actually have a lot of symptoms on here. I would highlight as many as you can remember that come up, and especially look at the DBQ and see which ones are the most relevant on there to reflect this. Let's say you have some nausea, some vomiting, sensitive to light, and then you can also add some at the bottom. But again, there's another section to add this as well. So then you can go to the select a potential trigger that was coming to mind. Let's just say you don't really know. You can put stress if you think it's stress. You could put a depressed mood. If you think it was from that, you can put caffeine use, alcohol use. We can just use all of these for right now, just for the demonstration. Keep in mind, you could claim migraines as a secondary, so you might want to think about how you would do this, and we'll talk about this at the end. So the category of did you sense it coming? I kind of treat this as another way to show symptoms, because really for me, I almost always have a visual disturbance first, followed by a headache, but that's not the same for everybody. Did you take any medication? So I actually have a prescription, and to showcase the VA that I use my prescription, I try to remember to write it down each time. So let's say Topiramate. So this is another important category. What relief methods have you tried? Dark room, rest, and sleep is one of the most helpful things for me. If I'm staring at this light or my computer screen, I'm having these auras that are happening, I need to turn off the lights. I get over the migraines the fastest when I'm able to take a quick nap. I need to fully lay down. That's just me personally. So I always mark that. How did this affect your activities? Let's just say I missed work today because it got so bad. It's the end of the day right now, but let's just assume I missed work. I don't always highlight this because sometimes I don't have pain. I just have the visual cues, but let's just say the front of the head and the eyeballs, right? Like that pressure that you get. So right here's the section where I would take down notes. I would take down the fact that you had to lay down. I would write down the fact that, you were nauseous or whatever it may be, but write out the symptoms, repeat what you had seen in there, but write it out in your own terms. Just write out a paragraph of like how you felt. And again, sometimes you can't do it when it's happening because you feel like shit. I fully understand that, but you can do it later. I had to lay down and miss work today. I'll probably do a little bit more than this, but this is just an example. All right, so the duration of this was 1 hour and 5 minutes, and it's ongoing. We have the pain locations, pain intensity, the medications you took, and the symptoms. Okay, so now it was logged that I had a migraine today. It is going to be in there. It's going to reflect in the calendar that I had an attack. So I went back in time to kind of showcase that I had a few others in here previously, but I had a couple migraines that were pretty bad. And when I was tracking very diligently, I made sure I tracked every single one that ever happened. Now from the calendar button, if you go to the right and go to attacks, you can actually on the top left where there's a little arrow, you can actually click here and pull a report from the last 30 days or 90 days or even a year. And again, the VA looks for what is current, right? So they want to see that this is happening currently, but you also might have a CMP exam later. So you want to have the app on your phone and bring it to the exam, but you also might want to have a report of the last 6 months or 90 days. So let's just do 90 days. You can share this with your doctor. I'm not sure what that link does because I just used to export these and then upload them online with my CMP exam information. So I click PDF. My file is downloaded, and now I can actually just send this. And I just used to email these to myself just to get it on the computer. So if you click on the email button, text it, or you can save it in your files on your phone, whatever you want to do. And now I'm going to jump over and show you exactly what Migraine Buddy looks like when you have the report. So when I actually pulled off the report, it will show me a migraine list. And I pulled this report from what I submitted to the VA, but I had a list from 6/1/23 to 9/30/23. And under the attack types, I just put all attacks. So any headache, anytime I had to lay down from any sort of migraine or the aura vision things that happened to me, which is like super frequent and really annoying, I made sure that that was part of this file. So when I clicked export, sent this to myself, this is exactly what I was looking at. So I'm just going to scroll down and show you how many of them happen at home. Some of them cause me to not have sleep very well, all of these things. So now this stuff's really important. And if you want to go deeper and actually understand how to use these tools and what you pulled from a PDF like this to write personal statements, buddy letters, even a letter from the doctor, and understanding everything that you can use with some templates, I have a full course on veteranbenefitsblueprints.com. The link is in the below, and everybody on YouTube gets a discount. Look for the discount code. This is my personal website. I made a full-blown like 8-hour course with a bunch of free information. And like I said, templates and content pieces. So go check it out after this video. So now that's probably like one of the most useful, tangible pieces of evidence that you can give. And now you're going to translate that into something like a personal statement. And you also want to show other evidence pieces as well that might match up with this. If you're gunning for that 50% marker because you fall within that criteria, it's really helpful to have something like the Migraine Buddy app showing when you're tracking a log, and something that also shows when you are missing work or having to make communications about work to a boss, to a coworker, or even to a spouse that might have to drive you and pick you up. Other evidence that is very helpful is getting a letter from your boss that states, hey, I need some help from the VA. Can you write down the fact I've missed work from migraines? That might be asking a lot. I understand you don't want to maybe ask your boss for this information. You can also maybe screenshot some emails that you had sent back and forth, some correspondence, or just show your sick leave time and say, if you ever had a written indication on there that said, I had a migraine, here's, the time I had to take off from being sick. You weren't sick with like a cold, you were sick with a migraine. And if you're trying to prove that, that's one of these really good pieces that can add on to evidence. Okay, so that's my last pro tip that I kind of added to this video last minute, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is one piece of evidence and you want to be able to link it to other pieces of evidence for the whole package deal, the whole story that you're going to give to the VA. So let's jump into the last section, which is secondary conditions. So if you have primary conditions already from the VA and you were denied migraines as a primary condition, let's say, or maybe you never even actually made them, you can actually make them from secondary conditions off of some primaries, but it's not going to be any conditions. So let's walk through a few examples. So if you've had a TBI in the past, you have a diagnosis of it, you have it on record, maybe you're already getting some compensation, that is a good primary condition to lead to secondaries of migraines. So if you're having a diagnosis of migraines, remember, you always have to have a diagnosis here. You can't just say this last minute. If you have a diagnosis and you have a diagnosis for a TBIs, it's easier to link those two together than going back 20 years and saying, well, I used to get migraines, there's no documentation. But instead, you might be able to link this as a good secondary condition. So the second one is actually going to be PTSD or any mental illness that's caused from anxiety or depression as the primary, and then migraines as the secondary. And again, I'm using the term migraines loosely, but this is any headache. Just remember that. So if you've gotten a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety from a PTSD diagnosis of your daily living being affected all the time, and it causes a headache, a cluster headache, just tension in your jaw that causes a headache, remember, that's a good secondary condition to make sure that you're tracking. So the third one that's common that you can use, and I would say this one is not the most common and it is harder to prove in general, but is actually linking a primary condition of tinnitus to a secondary condition of migraines. If there's a constant ringing in your ears that is debilitating, it can actually cause a headache, it can cause stress, which can cause a headache, then that's a good primary condition and secondary condition of migraines. So the fourth one is going to be poor sleep, and this is going to be under two different things, which is insomnia, which falls under the mental category like PTSD, or sleep apnea, which is a breathing disorder but causes bad sleep. Having bad sleep in those two areas, either one of those as primaries, could lead to migraines as a secondary condition. And the fifth one, having some sort of neck injury, a pinched nerve, anything that might actually mess with your nervous system up here really high or up in your neck and causing a lot of tension, having that injury as a primary condition will most likely lead to some sort of headache in your life as a secondary. Again, I'm using the term headache and migraines interchangeably because it's under the same diagnostic code. So I'm not trying to assess you as the individual. I have migraines as a diagnosis, but if you just have headaches from having a prior neck injury, it's very warranted that you can get it as a good secondary. So to recap this, if you can show that you have a primary condition, but you're also diagnosed with migraines, this might be your chance to link these two together. If you have the evidence to back it up, if you're having a migraine log, all of these things together will give you the opportunity to claim migraines as a new condition if you're trying to make it, or maybe even an increase. And I hope this video was helpful. Please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment below if you've been working on any of these things with migraines in the past or have a good story for somebody else to learn in the community, and we'll see you guys next time.